Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the KB Show. We've got Dee with us, Dizzle, with us today.
Oh my God, nobody's called me that since year 12, literally.
I remember you introduced yourself as that in our last podcast. That's why I was going to use it for you today.
Yes, I did so.
I was retracking it. So she's a nutritionist, wealth of knowledge, obviously a business owner as well, qualified PT. Been there, done that. She's done it in the fitness space. It's going to be very exciting. We're going to get into some topics about PCOS, menstrual cycle. Her program runs around actually women's menstrual cycle, and you just pretty much cater your whole thing towards women. So any women out there, you're going to learn a lot in today's episode. But without further ado, I'll give you the mic to intro yourself.
Thank you. Yes, so I'm Dee. I'm a nutritionist. I'm a personal trainer. I also consider myself a mindset speaker. And a mum, which I feel like is the most important thing that I am. And yeah, I'm so lucky. I'm like at this point in time in my life, I'm so lucky to just have this perfect triad. Like I did psychology and then I did PT and then I like topped it off with nutrition. And I was like, you know what? That's the trio. So I feel like I'm very lucky to be able to influence, a lot of women just with like very simple, easy to implement strategies like tips and tricks like that, and because of my own journey with polycystic ovarian syndrome, that's why I now like my target market, the women I absolutely love to help is like past me. So yeah, very grateful.
Well, that's sort of how we met, and I know you really care about obviously learning, and you have a real passion for it, and that's how we met. We met at the Muscle Nerds seminar.
That's right.
Geeked out together.
It was fantastic.
Love it. Can't wait to geek out again.
I know. I literally was like, when should we do the next one?
I haven't even finished the second. We're on to the third already, guys.
Let's be honest.
So go into, obviously you spoke about your PCOS experience. I think that'll be good, and it sort of flows into my next question, which I kind of know already, but why you got into the health and fitness space?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reason I got into it initially was, there was a big gap. I mean, if we're talking about why I got into, Flow Fit, which is my program specifically, which is catered towards women, and like everything runs on your cycle. Like the reason I got into that specifically was because when I did PT, I don't know, like I feel like you could agree, it was like a really cool, trendy thing to do, but then you were helping people with you had quite a lot of responsibility. Like now looking back and like now we've done the Muscle Nerds course, we realize, wow, actually you can achieve so much and movement can be so advantageous to your life. It can be such a game changer. But a lot of people get it wrong, like for them, for their body and for their life, for their gender, which I found out. And I think because there was a lot of like, I don't know, I feel like for lack of a better word, maybe a lot of masculine energy. There were a lot of guys who were trainers, there were a lot of, who's up on the wall, like at a gym, like it's guys, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's The Rock. Like there's not a lot, and especially when I did PT, there wasn't a lot of women like role models, and the only kind of role models there was women who were just like beefed and beasted, like, and that is perfectly fine if that's what you want to be, but I didn't feel like I fit into that category. And I also was wondering to myself, after being told at 18, you have polycystic ovarian syndrome, here's the pill, and then when you want to have children, come back and we'll do IVF. And I remember thinking to myself, but surely there's more that I can do. Surely I can influence my own body and my own hormones and, how my life looks myself. And now looking back, knowing how influential, like how you move your body actually is on your life, your whole life, I feel like that was what I was looking for. I was like, yeah, but what do I do with my training, with my food? Like, what should I be doing? How can I help myself in the future? I don't want to get to, hey, I want to have a baby, get off the pill and have literally no idea what I should be doing. Like I wanted to be able to help myself and learn along the journey so that by the time I got to, kind of like life now, when I know I want to have like a second child, like I've obviously got one already, I want to be sure that what I'm doing is the right thing to do. And there's so much conflicting advice out there on like, anything you read or watch or whatever. And so I wanted to be able to sift through all of that and be confident that what I was doing for myself was actually going to help me achieve the goal that I wanted to achieve, which was be able to fall pregnant naturally, not have to spend tons of money on IVF. Like, you know, like,
Shit.
like I don't, like, nobody wants to go through IVF. I've had a lot of clients who've gone through IVF. It is hard. Like, it is really hard. Like, I don't know if you've known anybody, like, or seen what it's been like, but the journey looks very hard. You know, my heart goes out to like women having to go through that. Like, obviously it's not anyone's first choice. So yeah, I just wanted to be able to like figure it out for myself. It really decided with me. I just wanted to know it for myself. And then as I started to learn and study, like, you're very similar to me. Like, we just have this like insatiable like love for learning. Like, you just want to know more and more and more and like understand how things work and why is it that way, and ask questions. And that's just really how it eventuated for, you know, for me to become kind of the person that I felt like I needed back then. Yeah. Which I feel like is like a lot of people's journey, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Like, I wish I was this person, or I wish I had this person in my life. And then they kind of become that person.
Yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by King Beats Apparel. So support the podcast by shopping King Beats. We got the first one, Not Your Average Gym. It's got a screen print on the back. And then we got the Gotcha Shake as well. I'm rocking an XL for this. I'm 95 kilos and 6'1". So jump over, support the podcast, and grab yourself a shirt.
It's similar to, as you were explaining before, about as you're coming through in the PT models that you would have learnt off and beat around. A lot of them would have had the problem of maybe they were too small or maybe they were too fat and they didn't like it, and then they changed it, and then they're trying to obviously be their person and try and change the people from what they previously were. But I think a lot of it comes back to a little bit of like ego as well, like as you were saying with like masculine energy. And I think it's a lot of the PT game, and more I spend time in it as well, is like a lot of people are trying to prove themselves in that hour or 45 minutes, you know what I mean? And they're not weighing up what the person's doing for the rest of the day, and how that hour, how that 45 minutes is affecting the rest of the day. And I think I spoke about this in maybe one other podcast, but one of my clients like approached me the other day, and he's like, oh, how come, like, he'd come from a PT, and I don't know the guy's background or anything like that, but just for the point of the story, he come from a PT where he sort of was like smashed a lot and did a lot of weights, and he was always sore. And he's quite an overweight guy, and he probably needs to lose about 25 kilos. But for me, like I said to him, like for me, it's what you do for the rest of the day. I'm not going to smash you and make you feel terrible next day as a like, yeah, you know, I did that. Like, you know what I mean? He can't walk today, but it's like, for me, I'd rather you get up, feel pretty fresh, have some energy, go for a walk, because at the end of the day, like, the NEAT that you get outside of the gym is going to be more effective and better for you in the long run than what I'm going to do to you.
100%. And those kind of sessions are more for the personal trainer than they are for the actual person. Because it's like, they're like, yeah, beat my chest. I did such a good job. I smashed them. They almost vomited. Like, woohoo, yeah. It's like,
can't walk the next day. That was me.
It's
this like, guy does not need to walk the next day.
That poor person. Like, look, that could be what they want and what they're after, maybe. But 99% of people don't want that. They just want it to be, you know, an ability to create some endorphins, feel really positive, check it off their, you know, tick it off their to-do list, and move towards like health and a better way of living. Like, and that's just not sustainable. Like, those kind of training sessions, I don't think are sustainable.
Yeah, exactly. They're not sustainable. Plus, a lot of the times too, you're going to be affected by form. A lot of these people aren't super advanced and haven't been listening for a long time as well. And I know, obviously, we did the Muscle Nerd seminar together, and it's like night and day from when you go into it, like what you think a movement is, and then you come out the other side and it's like, holy shit, like, this can actually change someone's life, get them out of physical pain, which is amazing. And a lot of things like,
and prevent injury.
Exactly. Prevent injury, makes them feel better, make them have more energy, make them want to go for walks and want to do things active outside of it.
Yeah. And I also think like that kind of session that you described before is also what I feel a lot of women strive towards, because they think that's what they should be doing. Like, I mean, look,
go for it. Go. I know what you want to do. Go for it. Just lay it on the line. Feeling it.
I can't stand these photos where it's like people take a photo of their Apple Watch. The
old calorie burn.
First of all, those are not that accurate. like in terms of what your body is actually like capable of doing, and your own body's fluctuations in your BMR and how many calories you're going to burn. Like, but I am definitely not judging anybody who does that. I totally was where you were at one stage, but now I see it and I'm like, that is such, to me, that's ego. Like I like genuinely, I do think that there is a part of that is ego, where it's like, look how hard I worked. I also think that people want to be congratulated because they want to keep being motivated. And I think that is totally fine, but it burns me because how is that a representation of what you've done? Like there's so many other factors like tempo and, you know, like what, like you're saying, form and like how heavy you went. And again, not to compete with anybody else to be like, oh man, look how great I've done. It's all about, does that suit your goal and your lifestyle? And if your only goal is aesthetics, okay, like sure, maybe, you know, in the past it has worked for you to just like smash yourself and burn yourself out. But especially for women, it is not conducive to hormonal balance to be smashing yourself every single session. It's just not. And it's going to be the very thing that changes your period, that makes you feel shit, that gives you PMS the week before your period, that makes you fight with your partner because you can't control your mood. Like, it does affect your life. Like, do you want to answer the phone to your mom and be like, she's like, hi, and you're like, what do you want? Like, because you're in a shitty mood because of like all that stuff you've got going on like internally. Like, you know, I just feel like my like life's work is to be able to help women understand their bodies so that they don't have to do the cool trendy things that are actually not so great for their bodies and for their female hormones. Like, sometimes there's a time and a place for those kind of workouts. But yeah, I just...
Oh, if it's like a team environment as well and you just want to smash yourself with your friends, it's more about the camaraderie and, as you said, chasing a bit of endorphins.
That's right. But yeah, it's not like, you and I know, like, that is not necessarily an effective session for that person based on their goal. And it's more about, you know, what goal do you have? Do you just want to be able to play with your kids, or are you trying to be a bodybuilder, or are you trying to be a power lifter? Like, their session should reflect what their goal is, regardless of how you look as a personal trainer when you're training them. So, and
even for me, like, even if your goal is aesthetics, it's like, it's not really the best way to go about it either, is just looking at your wrist to see how many calories you burn. It's like, for me, it's like, where's the progressive overload? Like,
that's right.
What are you trying to burn an extra 5 calories the next week? Like,
exactly.
It doesn't make sense, and it's hard to track. And as you said, it's not sustainable trying to smash yourself even more and more into the ground. And we all know, like, if you want to have a better looking physique, you have to be able to do weights in there as well, incorporate some sort of resistance training, which I know obviously you have a lot of in your program.
Yeah, I do. There's a lot of weight training in my program, mostly because that is the most beneficial form of exercise for PCOS sufferers.
Yep.
But it's also, like you mentioned before, it's actually an opportunity for your body to build more energy, because when we think of the cell and we think of the batteries that are in the cell, if we make those batteries more efficient, and they are efficient batteries in the first place, which, you know, there's a separate kind of training for that. But once you get efficient cells and you're healthier, or you're, you know, more balanced, and you're not burning yourself out with those like crazy sort of sessions every single day, day in and day out, that really burn you out, then when you do weight training, you're able to duplicate those really fully charged batteries, and over time you get more energy. With more energy comes happier days, better relationships, more control over your day, because you can end the day, say, you know, you do an early morning shift.
Guilty. But Sorry.
Early morning shift. And then you finish the day.
Oh, well, that what you're talking about. Sorry.
Yeah. Wasn't the one you were thinking of. And then you finish the day. If you want to train, because you haven't trained on that, you know, 5th day of the week, and you were aiming for 5 days, you know, to train that week, you'll be able to make the decision. Not your body makes the decision like, oh, I'm so tired, I'm exhausted. Like, you make the decision. You're in control again. And I think for women, a lot of the time they feel very out of control with their body. And I feel like, you know, being able to understand your hormones actually puts you back in the driver's seat. Even though it's like you have to understand your body first, still understanding your body will then let you be the driver as opposed to the passenger. Because other than that, you're just a slave to your hormones, and you're a slave to your hormonal symptoms. And some women get, you know, get dealt a shittier hand than others. Some women can go through a lot of stress, a lot of shit, and their cycles are absolutely perfect. You know, but I would say 90% of women out there like have some kind of hormonal imbalance, even if their cycle is regular. So even if they have like a 28 to 35 day cycle, they are still experiencing hormonal symptoms. And I think a lot of them, like more so now than before, and probably maybe because of the last couple of years in the world, it's more about like their mindset and their mood that is kind of the biggest problem and the biggest symptom. Yeah.
Well, let's bring it back to you. We're talking about you had PCOS. Do you want to give us a little bit of explanation to that? And just as what we're trying to achieve here is just, as you were saying, give some education, give some understanding so that people can take control.
Yep.
And I feel like that's the biggest thing that you've decided to do when they were like, hey, the doctor sort of sat you down, jump on the pill, do this, being able to give them control. So do you want to give a bit of an explanation to PCOS?
Sure, yeah. So polycystic ovarian syndrome used to be thought of that you go to the the gynecologist, and the gynecologist will do an ultrasound on your ovaries, and if you have lots of cysts, then you get diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome. That is no longer the case, and I actually know a lot of like older women who are like kind of older than me, like kind of like late 30s, that I think have actually been misdiagnosed as having polycystic ovarian syndrome. It is still very prevalent. I think 1 in 7 was the last time that I checked the stats. Like 1 in 7 women have PCOS, and PCOS is now one of the, it's the most prevalent hormonal imbalance. So like it's a big deal. Like it's fairly a lot of women have it.
Yeah, and it's quite a vicious cycle, isn't it?
It is. Yep. So with polycystic ovarian syndrome, what happens is you have an irregular cycle, and that is due to a lack of progesterone being able to counterbalance your other hormones. But you often also have elevated testosterone and androgens. And obviously, we know testosterone as being like a male hormone. Women definitely have it too. And actually, we have more overall testosterone than we have estrogen, which is a really surprising fact. It's just that we are much more sensitive to estrogen than we are to testosterone. But testosterone is the hormone.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. I know, it is super interesting.
Is it the same for free? Do you know? Is that the same for free tests?
Oh, yeah. We still have more free testosterone overall.
There you go.
Yeah. Yep. And I think also the more you train, the more you're also able to sort of optimize that as well. The only thing is that with PCOS, the problem starts with you have too much testosterone. And the unfortunate thing is because of various factors, you also then have more toxic forms of testosterone. So you also have DHT, which is the one that creates like balding.
Male pattern baldness, guys.
That's
DHT.
right. That's right. But it also does the same for women. So a lot of women come to me with hair loss, and that can also happen for them as well. So they have high testosterone, but then high DHT because that conversion happens. You need zinc, a lot of zinc, for the conversion to happen with that. And a lot of women who have PCOS have really low zinc levels as it is. And zinc is really important for like mood. It's also really important for skin. It's also really important for gut and gut like healing and health. So it's like you get this.
It's used so much around the body for reactions and stuff, eh?
So much, like it's a cofactor for a lot of like other chemical reactions to take place. So yeah, you just kind of get into this really like shitty like spiral where the only probably positive when you have PCOS is that you can build muscle very easily because you have high testosterone.
Boost.
Yeah. And I actually I remember what it was like. I was like, muscle building, please. But I also found it like harder to lose fat. And I think, you just want that balance and more so than the balance, you want the control. You want the control over your body to kind of where you feel like you're working with your body and not working against your body. Like every day doesn't feel like a slog and feel really hard.
Well, the main thing for it is like acne and like facial hair for like women and stuff, isn't it?
Yep. So you kind of get hair where you don't want it, and then you lose it where you do want it, like on the top of your head. And yet you can get quite bad skin. Not everybody has bad skin, but it's pretty common. And again, like that zinc deficiency as well, like is kind of playing a role there. But what is also playing a role is the fact that your insulin then can get upregulated as well. So and testosterone and insulin kind of when they're both like they can get really toxic when they're both high. And PCOS often starts with, and the kind of basis of PCOS is elevated insulin. And the elevated insulin happens first, and then the elevated testosterone happens after that. So what I find, like a lot of the treatment that I had to implement myself for a really long time and really had to really understand, because I have horrible genes when it comes to like blood sugar regulation. Like every relative I know has type 2 diabetes. Like my dad's got type 2 diabetes. Yeah. And I take after my dad's side, so I was like, okay, I better get this sorted. Like a really like underlying cause for PCOS is that insulin dysregulation. And so insulin can be kicked up as an inflammatory hormone, even when girls are like, I have a perfectly clean diet. Stress can actually do that. So stress can kick up insulin. You can have like an actually really quite, like you could bring me your diet and I'll go, you know what, this is actually like well balanced and this is a good diet. But if you have chronic stress in your life, and like, you know, when it comes to like what is stress, we're looking at not only your physical stress, but what's your mental stress, emotional stress, environmental stress, like all of that will compound to be this one, you know, really stacked, stacked pillar. And we call that the allopathic load.
Ooh.
Oh, stop it.
Okay. Sounds fancy.
that like when you stack all of those stresses together and then you look at this perfect diet that someone has brought you, then you go, oh, okay, that's why you have elevated insulin. It's not because there's anything wrong with your diet necessarily. It's because your stress is so high. And I know a lot of people often will ask me, you know, if you had to choose between, because obviously I'm a nutritionist, I'm a personal trainer, and I'm very much into mindset. Like, yes, I'm a mindset speaker for young people, but you know, people will often ask me times, you know, what's the most important pillar? Like, where do I start? And the answer largely is start with the one that
was one of my questions.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. I think the answer to that is largely like, it depends on you. It depends on what's accessible to you. Like, do you hate going to a gym? I wouldn't start with movement first if you hate going to a gym. So it just depends on like the person themselves. And I would say largely though, I think most people would benefit the most from mindset. So really, like, it's so funny, I'm a nutritionist and a personal trainer, and people ask me, out of the three, like those are my three pillars, food, fitness and focus, what is the most important? And I say focus. It's definitely your mindset, definitely your stress resilience and how you deal with unexpected events and a lot of pressure and a lot to do. Like, that is more influential. Like, that emotional part is more influential on your physical body, I think, than the food and the training.
Yeah, what's psychological is ultimately biological, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So in that, obviously we've sort of given an explanation of it. How would you tackle it for someone? Okay, so you sort of spoken about you would probably go to mental first and try. Well, it depends obviously what they're showing and what their lifestyle is like, obviously.
I mean, specifically with FlowFit, I do all three at once.
Yep.
And the only reason I do all three at once is not to overload people, because I actually think that those are quite simple. Like the way that the program is structured, it is quite simple. I made it specifically because I like simple, and I know that other busy people like simple too. But it's all about tackling all those three all the time, because you'll always bounce between those three pillars, you know. And sometimes you'll have, you know, your kitchen's so under control and like all this meal prep, and then sometimes you won't, like, and it just depends on, you know, like where you're at the time and what's going to work for you. But at least if you know that you can bounce between three different pillars, then even if one is like falling to shit, you still got two that you can rely on, that you're like, you know what, in the back of my mind, I'm at peace. Even though things are not perfect right now, I'm still tackling two of the three pillars. Like, I'm still at least making it to the gym. My workouts aren't fantastic, but at least I'm still making it to the gym. And at least every day I am, you know, either meditating, journaling, grounding myself. These are my three pillars that we talk about in the FlowFit program, because they have the best return on investment in terms of people's mental health with a very small amount of time invested.
Yeah.
Like, really, you could do all three of those things if you wanted in 5 minutes. Really, you could. I suggest at least 15 minutes in the morning, but like, that is not a big time investment for people on a daily basis. And consistency with those things, those daily kind of rituals or those weekly rituals, the consistency there is everything. It doesn't need to feel hard. And I think this is a big mindset block with a lot of women. You know, that they look at my program and they think, oh, you know, it's a weight loss program, which it is a weight loss program, but I'm giving them what they want, but then also giving them what they need. So they need hormonal balance. So I'm like, if you fit this criteria, this, you know, you have bloating, you have acne, you have PMS, you know, you have painful periods, you have a period that never comes or a period that never stops. When I have attracted them to the program and the idea, and then they go, oh, you know, it's a weight loss program, I've tried everything. It's like, well, actually, like, you're just assuming that weight loss is hard to do, that it's like it's just an unsustainable lifestyle, and it's just really, you know, it's going to consume my whole life, and that's not the case at all. Like, there is ways around it, you know, like go into the gym, superset or triset, like save yourself some time if time is a barrier, you know, focus, like plan things out so that you know, okay, on this day I'm doing that, on this day I'm doing this. Like, for example, for me, I know, like, I'm a stupidly busy person, but I know if I can only make it into the gym 3 days, I'll drop my 2 full body days and I'll just make sure I do 2 lower body days and an upper body day, you know, like, and like, yeah, full body is also awesome and really good to do, but I know that my like foundational pillars is going to be like the real weight training of like my lower body, upper body days, because it's pure like hypertrophy, which the other 2 full body days are, but they're just not as heavy. And I would rather go heavy and really maximize my time in the gym.
Yeah. Maximize it.
Yeah. And you know, and minimize the time that I'm spending if I'm busy, but I'll still make sure that I go. So, you know, it doesn't have to be difficult. And then once you get the food side of things together, and look, this, you know, I don't want to go on and on about FlowFit like it's the best thing since sliced bread. I mean, I think it is, but you know, I wanted to make it so that it was like, if you're a super busy person, a super busy, you know, mom, or, you know, just like you worked in corporate, or you had a side hustle, or you just like had a really intense job,
or you just live in Sydney,
or you're just alive, then I wanted it to be like, okay, this is a tasty meal and I could zhuzh it up if I have the time, but if I don't, at least it's functional, you know, like it's got all of the macronutrients that it needs at the right time of day, which I think is another like big kind of food blunder that a lot of women make. But you know, it's already thought out. It's specifically made for you. All you need to know is where you are in your cycle, and you just match it to that. And it's not too difficult. It's accessible ingredients. There's no like crazy superfoods in there that you'll never see, you know, at the supermarket. So just really try to make it like streamline it, and just make it, you know, simple and doable for busy people.
Yeah. Well, that was sort of actually leading into my next question. Obviously, your FlowFit is planned. Could you say planned around women's menstrual cycle?
Yeah.
Is that sort of right? Yeah. So I'd like to hear how it sort of works out, how you sort of structure it within a month, or is that how you sort of do it for the month cycle?
Yep. So it's around about a month. I'm like, simple is like my middle name. So I grouped 2 phases, so there's 4 phases in a woman's menstrual cycle. And I lumped 2 of them together that were quite similar, and then another 2 that were quite similar. So what I do in FlowFit is I have a first half and a second half. I just feel like mentally that's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Like, which half am I in, as opposed to like, which phase am I in? Like, there's 4 phases, but there's 2 halves. So I just felt like it was so much like easier mentally. And
so just be like, what's the first half? What's the second half? Sorry, were you going to talk about
okay.
that? Sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, ask me. I want to know what questions people have. The first half is day 3 of your cycle. So day 1 is the first day you bleed.
Yeah.
But there's like a couple of days, you know, like, you know, when Cece will have a period.
Like
there's a couple of days where you're like, all right, you just need some you time, and that's okay. And she's just like, she doesn't have as much energy as she normally would. And then on like about day 3, that's when our estrogen starts to rise. Mm-hmm. So I've actually matched the halves of our cycle. And I actually think I'm the only person that does it this way. Like, I don't ever see anybody else kind of have like split it the way that I do. So, but I just felt like it was intuitive and it made so much sense. And especially I've been doing this for so long for myself and then for clients, that I was like, it's really day 3. Day 3 is when you start to get that boost of energy.
Yeah. So you'll sort of split it up on the hormone when the hormones are like going up and down.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So it's like, you know, so you're actually still technically in your menstrual phase on day 3, but day 3 is like, I split it into like from day 1 to 14 and then 14 to 28 or thereabouts. 28 is probably not as accurate. I'd probably say day 1 to 15, and then day 15 to 30 is kind of more accurate for most women. But what I do is I take those days and then I just push it forward 3 days. So I push forward, you know, from day 1 to day 3. And then let's say someone's got a 30-day cycle, I'll push it from like day 15 to day 18 as the start of their second half. And they will feel their energy start to drop at that time. So it was very intuitive to me to go, okay, that's when the first half is and that's when the second half is. So you bleed a couple of days, you start on day 3, and then after you ovulate, about 3 days after you ovulate, that's the end of the first half. And then the second half starts a couple of days after you ovulate until a couple of days after you've been bleeding. So and splitting it up into those 2 halves, like I said, keeps it so simple. But second of all, you're really matching it. You will start to notice as you start to implement the food and the training in this way, because they're similar but different, you will actually feel your energy changing. And then you just become so in touch with your body. And it's like actually the coolest thing ever, because you know when to push and you know when to flow, you know, and you know when's a good day to do this task in your business, when's a good day to socialize with your friends, when's a good day to podcast, when's a good day to just have a day in bed and not feel guilty about it. And I think knowing and having that understanding is just like next level. So in the first half, the way that they eat and train, or I should say the way that we eat and train, because I literally, like, I'm a person, I do this every single day. Like, I don't just like, I'm like, this is my program. I do my program. I live my life like this. So the first half of my cycle, I will eat more raw foods. So I will pick more like salads, smoothies. I'll try not to cook foods as much. There are specific micronutrients that I'm trying to get as well. So I will try to sort of up the antioxidant level as well. So I'll try to get lots of different colors in that first half as well. I will also try to get, more like cruciferous vegetables to help me detoxify, because there's such a surge of estrogen in that first half as well. But kind of more simply, my macro split is not going to be as high in carbs. I'm actually trying to, kind of have always a high protein diet. Like FlowFit, it's all high protein. It's not stupidly high protein. It's just high considering what people would think is high protein.
Yeah.
As we know,
people should be at.
That's right. Which is like around about the 1.5 grams per kilo of body weight. Like unless your goal is like muscle building, and then you could push it up a little bit more to about 2 grams per kilogram. But I feel like 1.5 is it's like a minimum.
Yeah,
it's a
minimum 1.5.
Exactly. Because I think the RDA is 0.8 grams.
Yeah, 0.8.
Yeah. Which like it's just not enough. It's not enough.
It's wild.
And I just think to myself, no wonder people are so like tired and like they've got gut issues and things like that, because if you don't have protein, you cannot make like cells and like the structure of things. And like we think about like brain.
Literally every enzyme's a protein.
Every building block is a protein. Like even the thing that ferries around your iron, it's like it sits in a boat of protein. Like, it's very important, and I think it's so underestimated how important it is. So I always try to make sure. I think
it's just always like stigmatized as like the bodybuilding,
totally.
That's how you build lean muscle mass, is eat protein.
Totally.
It's like it does everything. It not only builds your muscle, but it like builds other things as well. But sorry, carry on.
But no, for sure. It's like a very, very valid point. So I make sure it's high protein and then higher fats. There's still carbohydrates in there. It's not like there's no carbs. Like I'm not a person.
Keto,
like,
guys.
Oh god, we go into a whole can of worms there.
Yeah, 100%.
But
that's part 3.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, it's more around the like it doesn't really go over 20% carbs. So it's kind of like between 15% on quite a low carb day, and it sticks around like the 20% carb mark on a first half nutrition plan.
Yep.
Then the kind of training in the first half. And I feel like the training side of things is a really big gap. There is a really big gap in people understanding how to train for your cycle. And I think it's kind of like the coolest thing that I do. Like I love the nutrition part of it, but I also think like the training part of it is very cool to me.
I don't think anyone's really doing it. That's why.
No. And look, there is one woman in the US, her name is Alyssa Vitti, and she's wrote a couple of books, but she barely touches on this subject. I'm not trying to discount, like she actually was a big part of like helping me understand my body as well way back then, before PCOS was even a thing. Like nobody knew about it, nobody trained for it, nobody ate to match their period. That was like not a thing back then. But she was kind of like this one woman that sort of introduced me to the topic, and I was like, but why? But why am I only doing yoga, Pilates, and then less strength sessions in the second half of my cycle? Why? And now I really understand why. And so I can program, like as a PT, I can now program, the FlowFit girls to be able to still make gains, to still keep training, but to also have like the adequate recovery and the active recovery as well. But I'm skipping ahead because I spoke about the second half. But in the first half, what you want to try and do is have a good amount of weight training days. And now this is contingent on blood pressure. So like this is something that I feel like I really picked up and really solidified from Muscle Nerds and from Luke Lehman, like the way that he kind of made us feel like, what kind of personal trainer are you if you're not taking blood pressure? You know, like I feel like it is such an important thing, because it's a lot. There are some women, usually women have lower blood pressure, but there are some women that if they pick up a weight, like they could have a heart attack, like, and that's quite serious. And I think it is always important to like put health first.
That kind of took me back to the guy I was talking about before. He actually has high blood pressure.
Yes.
So I'm like, we probably shouldn't be doing heaps of resistance training, mate.
And not heavy, or like HIIT like style training. Like that's gonna drive up your blood pressure. So like you would be legally responsible as a personal trainer had you never done their blood pressure, I would think. Because like it's dangerous. It can be really dangerous. So So based on their blood pressure, and should it be just, if it's normal or if it's low, this is what they're doing for training. And this is like, we actually match people to a specific training program in FlowFit to make sure that they're doing what their body needs. So if their blood pressure is high, they'll do the cardio program. If their blood pressure is normal or it's low, they'll be doing the weights, like resistance training program. And the resistance training program, which I'm most women end up doing anyway, because like I said, most women have low blood pressure. We usually have low iron, and that kind of goes hand in hand. They're doing, heavy strength sessions, and they're doing they're splitting up into, 2 lower body, 1 upper body session and 2 full body sessions as well across the week. And 5 sessions I think is good enough, especially if you're going heavy. Like you need those 2 days of rest. And a lot of women feel guilty if they don't rest. But a big thing that I try to educate the girls with FlowFit is, especially in the weekly coaching calls, is all about recovery. You can't build muscle if you're not recovering. Like we know that's like you're building muscle in your sleep, not when you're actually training at the gym. Yeah. Like that's when you're ripping muscle fibers. But if you want to recover, that's when you need things like protein. That's when you need things like, like your HRV to be high to make sure that you can actually recover. Your stress can't be too high or your HRV will be low. So, and all of the other micronutrients and macronutrients that go along with that as well is really important. So then in the second half of the cycle, the foods that you're trying to optimize are more like cooked foods as opposed to raw foods. So you kind of want to go for like the soups and stews and stir fry kind of vibe. Oven baked things, just like put it all in like one tray and just like bake it all at once. And more anti-inflammatory foods. So like a lot more fish, walnuts specifically, a lot more olive oil, but you are also at the same time increasing the amount of carbohydrates. 1, because your body needs it. 2, because at the time you've got this dip in estrogen, because progesterone should be the hormone that then comes forward and is your most prominent hormone in the second half. And so to make up for that, and that lack of serotonin in the second half, that's why we optimize more carbohydrates, because then it's kind of like you're filling the gap where you otherwise might be anxious, down, depressed, moody. So you're actually kind of filling that gap with food, with carbohydrates. Now, obviously, we don't want to it doesn't mean that more carbohydrates equals happier people, because you could imagine people just be like, yeah, give me the bread, I'm going to be so happy. But, it is.
My missus is convinced on that. She's convinced.
I love
so
it.
it's chocolate.
and it's all about, finding that good balance where it's still okay to have a chocolate bar. It's still okay to eat, to want to and crave bread. But it makes sense as to why. And I think once you understand, my body actually wants this, what's a good choice I can make in the moment? And if you can make a good choice, great. If you can't, at least you understand what's going on, you know? Like you eat, like you binge in the cupboard and you eat every dessert in sight. Okay, it happens. Don't beat yourself up about it, but understand, okay, you know what? If I want to mitigate that and I want to reduce that from happening tomorrow, well, let me make sure that I'll eat some carbs throughout the day instead of trying to go carb free, because I think that's how I'm going to get shredded and sexy, and actually feed your body what it needs in a healthy way. Have some rice, have some quinoa, have your, you know, good starchy vegetables so that you kind of avoid that from happening in the future. Yeah, so I think, again, it sort of comes back to that, like, you know, being able to like sit back in the driver's seat of your life and your body, and not feel like you're sort of combating yourself. Yeah, so I think, and then it's sort of in the second half, what you're trying to aim to do in terms of your training is you can still go hard, but you just need to recover that little bit extra. So you sort of need to be able to listen to your body a little bit more and have those days where you're sort of prioritizing, you know, flexibility and mobility and rest and just being okay with the fact that if you want to chill, you totally can. And on those days, I still try to do like 5 active days, but in the second half, I still try to do, what's programmed for me and for every other FlowFit girl is the 2 lower body days, 1 upper body day, and then 2 slow flow days. And so you have the flexibility to choose. Like I go through this whole like massive list of like, here is a list of all of the slow flow activities that you can imagine. Do. Yeah. And just again, to give them expert permission. As the expert, I am saying it is okay if you want to go for a walk today and that's all you want to do. It is equally okay if you want to nap today. You can do that. As long as you've set up your week, you know, and you've got those 3 training sessions in there, like you don't have to feel guilty, but you don't have to feel guilty anyway. Like, especially in the beginning of your journey, you're going to fuck up. You know, you're going to have times where you don't feel like it, or your body is still kind of in control of you, like your hormones are still making you make decisions that you wouldn't normally make for yourself. Like that happens, and it's just so empowering. It is actually life-changing to be able to understand your period and go, you know what, this happened this month in my period. I know what's coming. Like, for example, let's say you had like a really hectic 3 months. You can pretty much be sure that your symptoms are probably going to be, you know, a bit more intense, like maybe a bit more heavy, more pain, more moodiness for that, you know, 3rd month period. So it kind of gives you like a bit of an idea of like what to expect, and like you can plan your life accordingly, you know. I feel like for me, being able to plan my life now, understanding my cycle is just, it just gives me so much freedom, like mental freedom, because I understand it so well. And like, say for example, like let's say I know I'm a couple of days away from my period, I will start to have lots of fish oil, because it's anti-inflammatory, and it will directly reduce the amount of prostaglandins, which is what makes you feel the sensation of period pain. Like, so I know I will start ahead of time going, okay, I know my period's coming up, so I'm going to start having that. I'm going to start having lots of turmeric, because I know turmeric is also helpful in pain as well, just to like help myself, my future self, in a couple of days from having to suffer. You know, I might be like, oh, I had a really, like, that was a stressful month. I probably am not going to have as much progesterone in this second half. And like I was saying, progesterone is that like main hormone that steps forward. I call it the hero hormone in your second half. And so if you know that you're probably going to be running low on that, that's when you're probably going to go, okay, maybe I'm going to get PMSy. Maybe I should just give my family a heads up, guys. I'm going to be shitty this week. Okay. Just please, just, you know, I'm a week away from my period. I've had a really stressful month. I know I'm not going to have much progesterone. Just be kind, you know, or whatever it may be, like however it works in your life, and just being able to understand yourself so well also allows you to sort of set boundaries in your life. Like, I know what I'm capable of this month because of XYZ. I know that for the last 3 months I've been doing FlowFit. I feel awesome. I feel fantastic. Hey, let's schedule that, you know, let's schedule that big launch. Let's schedule that side hustle activity that we were going to do. Let's start that business. Like, because then your health doesn't stop you from experiencing your life. And that is such a big reason why I do what I do. It's like, I don't ever want to hear someone say, oh, I never started that business. I never launched that podcast. I never had a child because, you know, it was my health. My health just sort of took over, and I had no choice in the matter. Like, that to me is so heartbreaking. You know, and I think especially for women, hormones affect you every single day. They don't just affect you when you have your period, which is what I think a lot of women think. They're like, oh, it's just going to affect me when I'm bleeding. No. No. So, yeah, that's very much the reason why I do what I do.
Yeah, it's quite a complicated thing. And I know for like men, it's kind of like super easy.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like a lot of the programs obviously would be up until now sort of written by men and sort of tailored towards that sort of side of things of like, you know, you just go through progressive overload. You just get better every week, guys, you know, and it's sort of that thing. And it's easy. Well, it's kind of easier for us because we get the same testosterone release every day.
That's
we have
right.
cortisol release every day. We don't have like a hormone that takes over in the second half of the month and a hormone that starts 3 days into you know what I mean? Like it just doesn't happen for guys. And it's good to see that someone's obviously thought of that and obviously to try and get women to understand why they may be feeling low this week or why they may be feeling more energized this week and just understand that whole fluctuating cycle that it is.
Yeah.
But before we move on, I just wanted to touch back on why you're talking about the serotonin and introducing more carbs, because I know it's a massive thing of like, you know, if you want to lose weight, eat less carbs, and a lot of women are on that sort of vibe. And just to give them a bit of understanding of like why you incorporate a bit more carbohydrates in that second half in relation to serotonin.
Yeah, sure. Well, there is a direct relationship with carbohydrates and serotonin production in the brain. So, like, you know, it's so funny to think, you know, when you cut carbs and when you understand, you know, about serotonin, and you understand that serotonin is not only your happy hormone, but it's the prerequisite to make melatonin, which is your main sleep hormone. Like, imagine not having serotonin. So not only are you not going to be able to sleep well or for very long if you don't have much melatonin, you're probably going to feel stressed because you don't have that serotonin. And on top of that, you feel like cranky and shitty. So, you know, it's like, I don't feel like there is a lot of pros to having like a low carb diet. Especially in your second half. I really don't. And there seems to be like a magical number that I can't really sort of find in any literature as to why this is the case. But when you dip too far below around about like 20% carbs, you get changes like, you know, lost periods and like things like, well, this is what I've experienced. I can't say that this is in the literature, but this is what I've seen of my clients. Like, you know, the anxiety, the overwhelm, like feeling really stressed out. It's almost like that 20% carbohydrate is a buffer. So it's just, yeah, it's super interesting to see that relationship, and especially in the second half, like just bridging that gap where you would normally have serotonin from the estrogen fluctuations, where you don't have that anymore. So you're missing the estrogen, which helps in the production of serotonin. So you don't have the estrogen in that second half necessarily. And so that is kind of what you're lacking and then what you're trying to sort of make up for.
Yeah, so you're adding a little bit more carbohydrates to get that flow-on effect.
That's right. That's right. Because, like in the second half, your progesterone really should be your calming anti-anxiety hormone. The problem is, and especially in PCOS, women don't ovulate, so they don't make progesterone. And a lot of women still ovulate and don't make much progesterone because, and this is probably a really important point that I should have made earlier, when it comes to progesterone, cortisol, your stress hormone, and progesterone are direct enemies. So when your body knows that there's a stress in the world or a stress in your life, your body is going to go, okay, I've got the ingredients. I always use this like cake versus cupcake analogy.
I do love this analogy.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
So let's say you've got ingredients and you're planning on making a cake, you're the chef, and then the manager comes in and says, hey, we've got some really important people that have just entered the restaurant. They want cupcakes. And you say, well, hold on a second, buddy. I only have enough ingredients to make a cake. That's what I was going to make. And your manager's like, nope, we need to make cupcakes. So you're like, all right, well, I've got to make cupcakes, so I'm not going to have any ingredients left over for the cake. So the chef is your ovaries and your adrenal glands. The cake is progesterone. So your body is hoping to make progesterone. It's intending to make progesterone.
Which being the cake.
That's right. Right. And if the manager comes in, which is your brain, and tells you that there is a more important thing that needs to be taken care of, i.e. you need to make cupcakes, which is actually cortisol, and your body will make cortisol to help you do shit, get shit done. So your body might be like, hey, you got a really like busy week coming up. sorry, but we're going to need stress hormones more than we're going to need progesterone. Like, you don't need to have a baby right now, like pro-gestation, pro-pregnancy. You don't need to have a baby right now. You need to get through this intense work week. So your body will make that, that cortisol over progesterone. And so this is why, because we are so freaking stressed out all the time, this is why women are suffering with low progesterone symptoms and why they have PMS. I've actually renamed PMS.
Of course you have. If anyone could do it, you could do it.
To be progesterone missing syndrome. Like, obviously that's not the official name for it, but that's how I want people to remember it. So it's like when you experience PMS, it is almost always because you have not enough progesterone, or your progesterone is low in comparison to your estrogen. So what can happen, what I was going to say before is what can happen is your progesterone is low, and sometimes on tests in the second half, let's say you get a blood test, your GP would probably say, let's get it on day 21. That should be the day that you've got the highest peak of progesterone, because that's the best way to benchmark it. So you're looking at, okay, well, we're looking at 7 days before your period, you ovulate, and then about a week later, that's when you should have the biggest release of progesterone from where that little egg is sitting, the sac that little egg is sitting in, because it's all the fluid in that sac. God, how do I make this not sexual? But it's all the fluid in the sac that is then, once the sac opens up, that's all that fluid, let's say, is progesterone. So it's whatever's surrounding the egg. So it's not the egg itself, it's the fluid around the egg that is then going into the body. And for a week, it's like a slow burn. For a week, it's just like helping you increase your progesterone to help you sail through until you get your period. And so on day 21, that's when they'll test to see, okay, how high is her progesterone. But at that time, you might see that you have low progesterone and high estrogen. So if that is you and you're like, well, wait a second, I should be happy when I have high estrogen, it's the Goldilocks rule. If you have too much of anything, that's not a good thing. So too much estrogen is not going to mean that you are super happy. Quite the opposite, which is kind of funny because a lot of the deficiency symptoms of things are also the toxicity symptoms of things. It's like when you have a zinc toxicity, it's the same symptoms as like a zinc deficiency as well. So. Yeah. Super interesting like that. But yeah, you just want that Goldilocks rule where your body is making enough and it's metabolizing it. It's taking the junk out. So it's getting rid of that estrogen when it needs to as well. It's not hanging around in the second half when it shouldn't be. We want progesterone to be high. We want stress to be low so that the cortisol is low as well. So I know that's not what you asked me, but that's where I went with that.
No, I think it was quite comprehensive. Did you get that, guys?
The cake.
Glazed over. That's right, the cake. So they make cupcakes. No, but it is interesting, and it's tough, man. Like, cause I'm not gonna lie, I did a bit of research before I came on here.
Good job.
And obviously for me, like, I've always sort of worked with men. That's been my main clientele. So like, I can tell you how men's hormones work quite easily. And it's just like, you pretty much, if you're too stressed, you're not going to have optimal testosterone. Yep. And that's pretty much the main things that we really need to worry about, at the crux of it. But it's like for women, it's like you need to make sure that this is right for, as you said, for the second half. But if that's not right and you're stressed and it's like, fuck, there's like a whole heap of things that just have to line up just to make sure that you're like semi-healthy.
You're having a baby, right? Because that's what your body is thinking is going to happen. Yeah. So yes, it is like a little bit of a process in terms of biochemically what's happening inside your body. But remember, that is so that your body can have a baby, which is like a big deal. And I realize that like you don't necessarily mentally want a baby every month, but that's what your body is trying to do every month. So really, the more fertile you are, the more healthy you are, which gets a bit risque because, if you don't want to be pregnant, it is a bit more risky, but that is exactly what your body is trying to do. However, while the science of it is complicated, I feel like the treatment is actually so simple. It really, really is. And
if you know someone that knows what they're doing, like yourself.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I do like a big, lots of feedback that I get is all about how simple the food plans and the training programs actually are, because that's the treatment, that and the daily activities, the 3 daily activities, that is the treatment for it. And the treatment, you just need to rinse and repeat 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. That's it. Like, that is all you need to do. It's actually so simple, regardless of the fact that the science behind it is so complicated, because I feel you with that. Like, I had to do like a whole you know, I had to study for years to figure this out and to really understand it. You know, not just like a guy, you know, your circadian rhythm is perfectly timed with your hormonal rhythms. No.
The cortisol comes up and then
Yeah.
it's quite easy. Sorry, girls.
No, but look,
But
again,
hey, people still stuff it up. There's still guys out there that are stuffing it up.
that's true.
And one thing
That's true.
That's why I wanted to ask you about the serotonin and the carbohydrates, because all the craze at the moment is like carnivore diet or like keto or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I've got all these mates, and Patrick can attest to this. He's like, no carbs, and then they'll go to bed and be like, oh yeah, I only need like 5-6 hours sleep and I feel sweet, I've got heaps of energy.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's cool. And then like a few months down the track, they're like crash and like, oh, I can't keep going anymore. And it's like, well, that's probably because you weren't having enough carbohydrates, where serotonin was leading on to then melatonin, where you could actually have a good sleep at night, and then you were draining adrenal glands, and then that obviously goes on and affects testosterone if you've got high cortisol levels, and it's like, that's why you crashed.
That simple explanation is why you crashed.
Yeah.
But I mean, we also have to look at carbohydrates and look at it's like carbohydrates are going to be full of fiber and going to be full of prebiotics. So they're going to feed the gut as well. And, you know, that gut brain connection is so strong and so important. So if you have, like, if you're not feeding your gut with like the building blocks that your bacteria needs, then, you know, not only are you going to suffer in terms of like cortisol and adrenal fatigue and all that sort of stuff, but you're also going to then like, you know, like, yeah, it's a real problem in terms of like gut health. I think that people really like underestimate just how important gut health really is. It's, and especially, I mean, like, you know, gut health, I think 90% was the latest statistic. 90% of your serotonin gets made in your gut.
Yep.
So that's like another, like a, you know, an overlapping effect of why serotonin is so important. Like gut health is so important. That gut brain connection is so important. That serotonin is being made. It's being sent to the brain. It's being made in the gut, but it's being sent to the brain. You know, we thought, well, I certainly didn't discover serotonin in the brain, but it was first discovered as a brain hormone, not as a, you know, gut hormone. But 90% of it's in the gut. Should we not like reclassify serotonin? Like if it's 90% made in the gut? So you got to make sure that you're like feeding your gut with carbohydrates and fibers and fibers and prebiotics are kind of one and the same, but because fiber is a prebiotic, just to make that really clear for everybody. But yeah, like to make sure that you're feeding your little buddies down there that are, you know, that you have a contract with. It's like, we'll create good stuff for you, like, you know, all those short chain fatty acids that they create that help to go on and create other things in our body if you feed us. And if you don't feed them, well, you're not going to have all those short chain fatty acids, which, you know, help a myriad of things that are going on in the body. You know, they help to create neurotransmitters and, you know, help to convert and make like vitamins in the gut. Like it, like, you know, it's next level. Like, again, I could talk about that forever. But, you know, there's that overlapping effect as well with serotonin.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we've kind of just been talking away. We've kind of gone over our 40-minute. But I really appreciate you coming on. I hope this has been super beneficial for you guys, especially the girls out there. I know I've definitely learnt a lot, and I can take this back to CC.
A little checklist.
Yeah, but I appreciate you coming out. Give yourself a little plug. Obviously, you have your Flow Flip program, so go through, give your Instagram, give your website and stuff like that, so where people can find you.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate that. So on Instagram, I'm at Dee Zibara, so DEEZIBARA. FlowFit is my 6-week women's wellness and weight loss program, and you can sign up for that at flowfit.live, LIVE. And that is like, I guess that's pretty much me. Like those are the places. I'm also on YouTube at the moment as Dee Zibara, just myself. I'm actually documenting my journey to fall pregnant and like what I'm doing in the process. Yeah, I want a second bubba, and then I think I'm good after 2. Yeah, so
that'd be cool.
Interested in that, yeah,
that'd be amazing. Yeah. Especially coming from like your background in PCOS as well. That would be really cool.
I mean, essentially, what I'm doing is making women more fertile, so it kind of kind of works perfectly. Like I am using my own program to help myself fall pregnant, which is kind of awesome.
Jesus Christ, we're gonna have to do a part 3. Honestly, I cut that short without even knowing that you were doing this freaking document.
Sorry.
Oh, guys, I don't know what we're gonna do. We'll have to get you back on. But anyway, yeah, as I said, thanks for coming out. Thank you guys for listening. As always, do the good things, like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any questions, please shoot it to Dee on the Instagram. She'll be more than happy to answer. I know she's about that life. But yeah, if you enjoyed, share on your Instagram. Helps get the reach out there. But until next time, thank you.
Thank you so much.